Hello everyone, my name is Nathan and welcome to Hale. I'm so excited to make this video. This is a video that I prepare for all year long. I keep track of every movie that I watch for the first time, and at the end of the year I look at all the movies I watched and I compile a top 10 list of every first time watch. This is not 2020 movies per se. In fact, it's anything but 2020 movies. The criteria for this list is it has to be a movie made in 2019 or before. The reason I don't include 2020 releases on this list is because I will have a separate video for that in the future where I rank my favorite movies from 2020. Another thing that I'm changing about this year's top 10 first time watches opposed to last year's is I'm excluding all criterions from the list. And the reason I'm doing that is because I will also be having a separate video where I rank my top 10 criterion first time watches of the year. A lot of these movies that I watched are available to watch online. Some even are free to stream. And so if you're wondering where to watch any of these movies, I would recommend downloading the app Just Watch. They're not sponsoring this video or anything, but it's an app that I use myself when it comes to watching movies, and I really like it. And so I recommend that you guys download it. Basically what it is you can search any movie and it shows you all the streaming platforms that movie is available to watch on. Number 10 goes to The Chorus. The Chorus is a 2004 film that was nominated for Best Foreign Language Film at the Oscars. This movie felt very similar to Dead Poets Society, but this time they sing. Like Dead Poets Society, a teacher comes to a school of all boys and teaches the boys on how to be better men, basically. But on top of that, the difference between Dead Poets Society and The Chorus is this teacher has a musical background, and so he starts teaching the children how to sing, and he forms a choir out of them. I apologize if I'm pronouncing this name wrong, but Gérard Jugnot, he gives a really heartwarming performance. The movie also has a great soundtrack. I mean, obviously, you hear the boys sing quite a bit. They have beautiful voices, and it's just kind of soothing to listen to. Something I'm sad about is The Chorus doesn't have a Blu-ray release in the US, so I would love to get a Blu-ray of this film. Number 9 goes to Grumpy Old Men. Now, this isn't normally my kind of movie that I get into, but I just thoroughly enjoyed Grumpy Old Men. Just as the title says, it follows two grumpy old men. They've always been rivals, but they're also neighbors, and when an attractive new woman moves into the neighborhood, Anne Margaret, they both are falling for her, and they're gonna stop at nothing to get her. And so it's kind of like a war between who gets the girl, but it's already stemmed from this lifelong rivalry they've had. And so there are a lot of fun practical gags that take place, but also there's some heart to this movie too. There were a few scenes that got me pretty emotional. Number 8 goes to the 1939 version of The Hunchback of Notre Dame, starring Charles Laughton and Maureen O'Hara. I watched this movie in October for my Halloween watch-a-thon. This was my first Charles Laughton performance I saw all year long, and I was so impressed with his performance. In fact, it led me to watch 4 more of his films in the last few months of the year. Something that surprised me about The Hunchback of Notre Dame is just how big it was. We hear about the 10 Commandments and Ben-Hur and these great big movies that were made in the olden days. I've never heard of Hunchback of Notre Dame. In fact, I stumbled upon it only because I think I was going through a list of like classic monster movies and this happened to be on it. And so I was like, hey, that looks really interesting as well. It also starred Thomas Mitchell, plus it was made in 1939, which is one of my favorite years of cinema. I was so impressed by the sets alone. The recreation of Notre Dame is beautiful, and they have so many extras casted as the village people. It was all just very impressive to me. Hunchback of Notre Dame just proves to me that 1939 is one of the best years for movies. At number 7, I have Almost Famous. This was a movie that came as a recommendation by you guys. I filmed it in my ranking your movie recommendations video, and it ranked as number 1. Almost Famous was just so enjoyable. It gave me all the emotions that I want to experience when I'm watching a movie. There are times where I laughed really hard. There were times where I was just so impressed by the performances that were given by all the stars. And there were times where I was sad as well, and I really felt for the characters. Kate Hudson and Frances McDormand were both nominated for acting performances, but I really think that anyone could have been nominated in this film because everyone gives a great performance, particularly the main kid, Patrick Fugit. I think that's how you say his name. I'm also a sucker for coming of age stories, and so obviously Almost Famous definitely satisfied me there. Double Indemnity was a movie that I watched when I spontaneously decided to explore more of Billy Wilder's films. He's a director that I've really fallen in love with this year, and I'm so impressed by the way he can write a script so cleverly. If you're looking for a good film to watch that is noir style, definitely watch Double Indemnity. It gives you everything that you would expect from a noir film, with the wisecracking lines it has, the fedoras, the shadowing of the film, the mystery of the film. Everything just feels so noir-esque, and I thoroughly enjoy it. It at times felt like an Alfred Hitchcock film. In fact, I was getting some serious Dial M for Murder vibes, but at times it also felt like Diabolique, a film directed by H.D. Clouseau. I love the way it's presented. It takes you places that you're not really expecting, so give it a watch. Speaking of Alfred Hitchcock, Strangers on a Train was such an enjoyable watch. Of the 15 Alfred Hitchcock movies I saw for the first time this year, Strangers on a Train was my favorite. It just wasn't what I was quite expecting. I expected the entire movie to take place on the train, but really only the first 10 minutes or so takes place on the train. Everything else is off the train, and it pursues from the conversation that is had on the train. In Strangers on a Train, a psychopath forces a tennis star to comply with his theory that two strangers can get away with murder. And that's all I'm gonna say about the movie, because everything that follows is pretty engaging, and you better believe that Hitchcock packs in plenty of suspense in this film. 1917 was a movie that came out in 2019, but I didn't see it for the first time until March of this year. The cinematography is absolutely mind-blowing, especially for this genre of filmmaking. I mean, we've seen it done before where it looks like it's all one take the whole entire movie, but we've never seen it in a war genre. At least I haven't, and so I was mind blown when I watched 1917. I also want to talk about a quick spoiler, so if you haven't seen it, go ahead and just skip to my next number because I'll end this segment with this spoiler. When Blake is stabbed by this soldier, I was so impressed with the way they handle his death scene. A lot of times in movies, I feel like a character gets stabbed and then they just kind of endure it and continue on with the movie plot, but that is so unrealistic. In this movie, Blake is stabbed and he literally cannot move. In fact, his partner is trying to pick him up and walk with him, and he's unable to do it. He's screaming in pain, and I thought that was so realistic. Amidst all of this, his face gradually gets paler and paler, and you literally watch him die, and it is so heartbreaking to watch, but so realistic, and I really was impressed by that scene in particular. Coming in at number 3, I have The Salesman, which was a movie that I watched for my Decade in Review series, which ended about halfway through this past year. It is directed by Asghar Farhadi, and I am continuously impressed by this director. He directed the movie A Separation, which I mentioned in my video last year, and that was number 8 on my top 10 first-time watches of last year. Salesman is number 3. Now, that's not to say I like The Salesman more than A Separation. They're two completely different years, so you can't really compare their rankings, but it's just to show that he's impressed me enough to make my top 10 list 2 years in a row. Both The Salesman and A Separation won Best Foreign Language Film of the Year the years that they came out. The Salesman follows a family who moves into an apartment and basically something goes down that has to do with the previous tenant. I don't want to give too much away. It's a pretty simple plot, not too hard to follow, but when you're watching it, you get glued to the screen. And that's the thing I love about Asghar Farhadi's films. You watch them and you're invested until the credits roll. He pulls you in and he doesn't let you go. In the month of October, I watched a ton of Tim Burton movies. I had the coronavirus and there wasn't anything for me to do but watch movies. With that, I saw Big Fish for the very first time. It's the ultimate feel-good film. And you guys know me, I love a good feel-good film. So when a movie really gets me emotional and that attached to the film, I know that it did something well. Billy Crudup, I swear, I pronounce his name differently in every video I make, but I don't remember how to pronounce his name. He's an actor that really impressed me this year. I saw him in Almost Famous and in Big Fish, and both of those movies made my top 10 of the year. Ewan McGregor playing the younger version of the father in this film made me laugh in any scene that he was in, and then Albert Finney, the late Albert Finney, was amazing as the father, and his performance made me cry. And the final 5 minutes or so, that's what did it for me. That's what solidified Big Fish as not only one of my favorite Tim Burton films, but one of my favorite first-time watches of 2020. But my favorite movie I saw for the first time this year has to go to Witness for the Prosecution, directed by Billy Wilder. I saw this movie recently, and I've already rewatched it because that's how good it is. It's one of those movies that you turn it on, and from the moment it begins, you are glued to the screen and you don't blink until the film ends. Okay, maybe that's a little exaggerated. You know what I mean. I would compare this movie to the likes of 12 Angry Men, where the dialogue and the back and forth and the camera angles and the twists and turns keeps you engaged the entire film. I live for these kind of movies. And not only did this movie solidify Billy Wilder as one of my new favorite directors, but it solidified Charles Laughton as one of my new favorite actors. I mentioned his name earlier when I was talking about The Hunchback of Notre Dame, but this movie has to be my favorite movie of his, my favorite movie of Billy Wilder's thus far that I've seen. This movie has such creative writing, and it goes in directions that you're not expecting at all. I'm not spoiling it here. In fact, the movie ends with a spoiler message saying, please don't spoil it for your friends when you watch this film. So I'm not going to be doing that here. I want you guys to watch it. If there's any movie that I recommend from this list, Witness for the Prosecution is it. it. But if you have time for 9 other movies, watch the other ones I mentioned too. Now in this video, I talked about my top 10, but if you want to see beyond my top 10, click the link in my description to check out the whole list. It's not every single movie, but it's about my top 25, I believe. So give that a click. Overall, I saw so many great movies in 2020. I wish I could talk about more. There were so many movies that I wish could have made the top 10, but they just missed it. Now, I want to make a special announcement here. If you guys have been following me on Instagram, you might have seen that a few weeks ago, I mentioned that I want to do a movie reward show on this channel for the movies that I've watched in the past year. It will be featuring categories such as my favorite first-time watch of the year, my favorite performance of the year, my favorite actor, favorite actress, favorite director, things like that, and I'm super excited about it. It will be coming out in the month of January, so be on the lookout for that because that will be coming soon. Guys, thank you so much for watching. Let me know what your thoughts are on these movies, and let me know what your favorite first-time watches of 2020 are as well. Hope you have a great day and a great year. See you later.